So to the FBI agents listening in on this call, thanks for cutting the Wi-Fi. Or the NSA agents. It could be one of them.
Yeah. Even the Chinese.
Sorry, that's probably even more likely to be who it is. So to the Chinese agents, or actually to the Chinese agents translators. So what was the question? The question was, why is Evergrande so important, or why is Evergrande potentially a catalyst for an economic crash? Hi everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Chatter. Before we get started, I just have a few quick messages. First off, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. It's the best way that you can help us grow. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. It's going to help us rank higher and get more and more views, and therefore bigger and better guests. Links for everything will be in the description below. So please enjoy the podcast. Yeah. That sounds wonderful. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Chatter. Today I'm here with Dr. Marco Metzler. So welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining me.
Hello, nice to meet you.
No problem. So you're here basically to speak to me about Evergrande and a lot of the things that have been going on around this particular Chinese company. As it's been, the reason I got in touch, as I'm sure many of the people listening will know, is because Evergrande has been touted by a lot of the people in the GameStop community as one of the potential triggers for a financial crash that may or may not be coming over the hill. So why don't you start by giving us an idea of who are Evergrande and sort of why are they interesting to the financial world?
Yes. As you know, I'm a former Fitch analyst, and I came across the Evergrande situation in September, and I analyzed the Evergrande situation at that days in September, and I discovered that the Evergrande is something much bigger, and we published a report on the Evergrande situation and also on a world economic situation, which is causing a financial meltdown of the markets, and also to create a new reset of the markets. And we during that time we already saw that the Evergrande was almost insolvent, and there was no evidence of that situation. And so in October, when Evergrande didn't pay the debt coupons on the international bonds, we further researched that and got in contact with investors, and they couldn't confirm that the payments had been made. So we decided to become a bondholder ourselves to get evidence then in November if the bond payments have been made or not made. And there we invested kind of $25,000. We knew that this money is kind of wasted and will be a contribution to just give evidence that Evergrande is bankrupt. And we then published that these payments have not been made, but the financial press did comment or did publish something else based on rumors and not on investigation. And then we decided to start an insolvency petition. I went to with my colleague Michael to the Caymans. We hired some local lawyers and started the insolvency petition, or to draft an insolvency petition. But doing that, we got some obstacles, some difficulties. But maybe this is another question and another update. But in the meantime, what happened is that officially Evergrande defaulted on the international bonds. So all the rating agencies, Fitch and S&P, they downgraded the international bonds to restricted default. So it's now common knowledge that the international bondholders are not paid and these international bonds are in cross default. But nobody has yet filed for insolvency petition in the Caymans. So we have become aware that the company was cross defaulted on the bonds. We called for other investors to join us to file the petition, and also the directors of Evergrande, they have the obligation to file for insolvency their own, and now they did not so far. And now it's the time where we are to file our petition in the coming days.
Okay, so there's quite a few things I want to ask about there. So first of all, just to clarify, so no one had Evergrande haven't officially gone into insolvency, and they haven't officially defaulted. Is that accurate? Because no one has filed to say that has happened.
Evergrande has published a communication note that they are not paying the international bondholders, but they did not file for bankruptcy in the Cayman Islands, where they are headquartered. So, but
why are they headquartered in the Cayman Islands when it's a Chinese company?
Yeah, there are some special tax structures and other Chinese companies which are listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. They also have a headquarter in the Cayman Islands. So it's a kind of a common structure used by the Chinese companies the last years. So yeah.
Okay, so just because the reason I'm confused is because as far as I am aware, almost every company, if not every company that exists in China, a corporation, has to have some sort of involvement from the Chinese Communist Party, right? They have to have ownership from the Communist Party. So the Chinese Communist Party are going to, they're part of a company who's set up to evade their own tax laws. So they're the state, the Chinese state has written their laws and their financial rules, but companies that are owned partially by the state are then evading their own tax laws in the Caymans. Is that accurate?
I don't know. I don't want to judge that, but it has been done that the Chinese tycoons have been given a lot of freedom from the Communist Party, and they abuse their freedom to create some very lucrative structures for them. So, but I'm not a tax expert, but it's definitely not the right way. And so the Communist Party has taken action and has taken over the control of Evergrande. And it's quite clear that the international bondholders will not get paid, and they are making all to save the onshore bondholders. But So yeah, even that it's a challenge and not feasible right now. And so the international bondholders, it's quite clear that they will not be paid. So it's not understandable that we are not supported by other investors so far. We contacted a bunch of them, but did not get a reply. And so now we decided to go further with our bankruptcy petition. But as I mentioned before, we got some obstacles. So the lawyers we hired when I was in the Caymans on the 22nd of November, they promised us to file a bankruptcy petition very quickly. But then after some days, they found some explanations to postpone that. And so what I found out right now is they had a conflict of interest with an IPO they did as an advisor on the London Stock Exchange of a Singapore company issuing a rate. And so at some point they had no interest in submit this petition, and we had to hire other lawyers, and we have done so. And currently we have the petition ready to be filed, but then there's another obstacle. You have to name insolvency coordinator if you file a petition, but nobody wants to be an insolvency coordinator so far. So I will post this today or tomorrow. We are officially looking for somebody to become a global insolvency coordinator for our insolvency petition. That's the only thing missing to submit the petition at the Cayman Grand Court so far.
Okay, so I've got two questions about that. So, first off, what was there? Have you been given explanations by anyone as to why they don't want to be the insolvency coordinator, or that they don't want to be a part of filing the petition?
We went through that with our old lawyers some weeks ago, and they found after 2 weeks they found somebody, but then they didn't go further that route, and now we have the same process, and the problem is that international law firms they fear that they lose mandates in the future if they accept that mandate, and if it's not successful, they are feeling that they are losing more accepting that role than they can benefit from. That's the issue.
Okay, right. So
but
then
I'm sure we will find one and we'll finish our job.
Okay, so then the next thing I'm curious about is this in any way typical of how this would work theoretically, at least, where so say a firm in Britain or in America or in Germany were in the same position as Evergrande, where they were all suspected to be in serious financial trouble. Like, is the thing normally where the company will declare themselves insolvent? Is that always what happens, or is this thing that you're involved with the petition for insolvency, is this more common maybe than some of us would realize?
Yes, if you declare that you cannot pay on debt, what Evergrande did to the international bondholders, then you have the obligation as a director to file for bankruptcy. So I see that all of the directors of Evergrande, they are kind of they have a liability now and can be sued after because they have not declared the bankruptcy. But I think all of the directors are in China, and so if you sue them in the Cayman Islands, being liable for paying the Evergrande debt, I think you will not recover anything except they have foreign assets somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine you're probably right there. So, just how much debt are Evergrande sitting on? Do we know?
So we know we have around 23.6 billion of international bonds outstanding. These are around 23 issues, and they all are now in a cross default situation. So we became bondholder. We have not received the bond payments. We didn't get any confirmation that we have not received it. So they played a good game at the time, but then they confirmed it on another bond issue, and with the cross default, now also our bond is in default. So it's not the challenge to get an evidence that they being in a default situation, and also the rating agencies confirmed that.
Okay.
So we have around 23 to 24 billion in international bonds outstanding, and so it's the press reports of in total 300 billion of debt being outstanding, and so in China, the creditors are already sued Evergrande. We have around 350 lawsuits already going on in China. So we know that because the courts in China report that a lawsuit is filed, and we have around 350 of these reports. And nobody, no court has made a decision finally about that. Uh, and so in China, also the onshore bondholders, they lately agreed on one issue to postpone the payments. But also other banks hold commercial loans, and they are creditors. So it's a big problem in China, and it already created some riots on the streets in front of a headquarters. People were shouting that we want our money back. So it's a kind of a social problem in China as well, and so the Chinese government has the intention first to pay the national debt of Evergrande to avoid any riots and turmoils, and then the international bondholders. It's already told that they will be not being paid. Yeah. So, but then we have to take action now. We have to save our position, to save the assets internationally. It's very important that the bankruptcy petition has to be now filed, and it has to also be accepted by the Cayman court. So it's the Cayman court, as soon as receives the petition, it will decide if it's accepted. And then after it's accepted, the insolvency coordinator will be named. And this will be the point where the international rating agencies are downgrading the company to a D status, to a full default. And that's a very important thing to achieve.
Why?
Why? Because as reported, some companies are still using the bonds as collateral for getting regulatory capital, and then it's in a full default status. It's not possible anymore. So yeah, it's very important to get that D status, and so yeah, so and nobody is interested in that, and now okay, we are doing it. Yeah. we will finish our job. Yeah.
So if the court accepts the petition, then what's the next thing that would happen theoretically?
Then insolvency coordinator, who is working also with Hong Kong authorities, with Chinese authorities, with Cayman authorities, they can block all accounts. So all accounts are freezed, and then it will have also impact on the bond, international bond prices, and also on the share prices. And also then I think the it should be reflected in the shareholding, and maybe it will not be traded in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange anymore. Yeah.
Okay, so my next question is basically trying to understand sort of what significance this particular company has potentially in some sort of economic crash or collapse. So because I've seen, and this may not be your opinion either, but I've seen quite a few articles comparing it to, they're calling it the Lehman Brothers of China, and they're making comparisons between Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers falling apart and crashing the global economy. So basically, my question is, like, what size of impact could this crash have on the global economy, and why is that being touted as a potential catalyst for an economic crash?
Yes. So Evergrande is the first Domino store to fall. It's already fallen, but still not dead. And we have to that it's dead, and we will do it. And the consequences are severe because all other real estate developer in China have.
Hello.
So
sorry.
Again, yeah.
Sorry, I have no idea what happened there. My entire internet connection just completely died for about 10 seconds.
So you have I don't know what maybe record where you asked the last question again. I will continue.
Yeah, that's no problem. So to the FBI agents listening in on this call, thanks for cutting the Wi-Fi. Or the NSA agents. It could be one of them.
Yeah. Even the Chinese.
Well, sorry, that's probably even more likely to be who it is. So to the Chinese agents, or actually to the Chinese agents translators. So what was the question? The question was, why is Evergrande so important, or why is Evergrande potentially a catalyst for an economic crash?
Yeah, Evergrande is only the top of the iceberg, so the iceberg already hit the Titanic, and the Titanic is about to sink. Why? It's because Evergrande has consequences for the whole Chinese real estate developer market. And also other big Chinese developer, they have difficulties. They already in default. And if Evergrande is internationally in default and does not pay the interest of the international debt, it's very likely that also other developers will go bankrupt and will not pay interest and principal. So it's very likely that the whole Chinese commercial paper bonds issued to international markets will not be repaid. and this is 580 billion euro no, dollars. 580 billion dollars will not be paid. And for example, in the times of the Soviet Union, in the Cold War, so the Soviet Union, just before they crashed, they paid all the debt in the time of the Cold War, and they had. So if China does not pay, or the Chinese companies and the Chinese state are not paying their international debt, it's creating very large international economic problems, and could even lead to a war between the US and China. And we see the conflict between Taiwan and US as a consequence of this. And we have seen some talks between the governments of China and the US in October, and I'm very sure they talked about the debt payment situation. And so the problem is, if China does not pay the international debt, their international banks like HSBC, they have reported in Q3 that they bought 100 billion US dollar commercial Chinese paper. 100 billion. It's almost full equity of the HSBC bank. And if they cannot recover these from China, and they legally they have no, they cannot, even if they bankrupt, they have no access to assets in mainland China. So, but they lend to these companies 100 billion dollars. Then HSBC will go into bankruptcy, and this has a huge impact in the UK, as you know, and also to the markets, and also other banks, international banks, have some exposure. And so it has a huge impact on the markets.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if HSBC go bankrupt, then who is going to launder money for the Mexican drug cartels? You know, that is the so basically the problem is that Evergrande hold a lot of debt. What was the figure you quoted there earlier? So they have $300 billion potentially in debt. Was that you said? And then
on the balance sheet, you do not see that. It's less. But if you count with off-balance debt, it's reported about that amount.
Okay. So then that could cause a ripple effect that could cause up to $580 billion in debt not to be paid by Chinese companies.
This is all the debt international investors gave to Chinese companies. So this is the worst case scenarios. But it looks like that China does not want that international bondholders being paid in the case of insolvency.
Okay, so would that be because they want to keep, like, say that this is really, really as bad as some people suggest, is because then China want to keep as much money in China as possible? Or
China itself is so bankrupt now, with the energy crisis, with the supply chains broken, that they cannot afford, even if they want to pay it, they cannot afford, because they have to pay first people in China to prevent any revolution.
Okay, so then my next question is basically, what percentage of that 580 billion is being held by Chinese investors, or by the Chinese Communist Party, or by other companies in China, and what percentage of it is like internationally held? Like so like how?
No, this is all internationally held. All
580 billion.
All, yeah. all international.
Okay, now I get why we're yeah, okay. That's a lot. So when you say China is bankrupt, is that the state have just sort of run out of money essentially? Are they sort of is this being caused by like supply chain problems or printing too much money during the pandemic or like yeah, because I haven't seen a headline saying China has no money left. So what do you mean by China is bankrupt? Like not that the papers would print that, but
So Chinese government bonds, I think it's still being paid. Yeah. But if the private sector of China does not pay interest and does not pay principal back, then you could say the private sector in China is bankrupt and will have consequences for the international markets. Yeah, because if 580 billion dollars are have to be written off by international investors, it has a huge impact and destroy economies in US, Europe, and in Asia. So, but the Chinese problem is not the only problem. So we have Turkey being bankrupt. We have a kind of a hyperinflation now coming soon. So it's not the only thing, but and it's one reason why this time it's not controllable anymore. So it's and this made me to the conclusion that we are on a highway to a meltdown and to a great reset. And the great reset is not what it's a new definition of a great reset. But this might be another podcast theme in the future when the market are crashing. So I want to talk about that, but
okay.
not right now. It's we have other issues to talk.
Yeah, and I actually have someone else coming on this week, who is she's an Irish financial investor who is making the case that that is basically going on right now. That there is the very very great possibility that might we might be heading for some sort of financial reset, whatever that means. I will find out from her. So the reason that I came across your work, and a lot of people who will be listening to this show, is because of the GameStop story. So how does this tie in your mind, at least, to GameStop and what's currently happening with that wonderful company?
Yes. So I explained that everything is connected. So Evergrande is the first domino to fall. It's already fallen, and the next thing will be a hedge fund crisis. And the hedge fund crisis will arise because the Evergrande or the Chinese bonds are not available anymore. To have solvency capital to will not be able to be used to get overnight capital from the Fed, and this is is one thing that hedge funds are obliged to sell off assets in a kind of a margin call. Yeah. And so this is the connection to AMC GME. If the margin calls happening and if the market is crashing, also because of other reasons, not only of Evergrande, there are a lot of other reasons that the market will crash. Then the short squeeze will happen, and this I commented in a lot of posts. But we first have to see the stocks AMC and GME going down a little bit more, and so people should hold the stocks, but should try to get kind of evidence that they own the stock. Yeah, that's very important. And when the market is crashing more than 25% or even 50%, they should find a good opportunity to realize the gains, because then we have a great risk that the banks or the brokers are going bankrupt and it's not possible to realize the gains. So it's very important. Timing is very important. And what I also recommended is that taking the gains, you should invest into tangible assets like gold, silver, or house, or even food. Yeah. So when the market is crashing, it's not like we have seen with the COVID crash. It's really will not be regain a long time, and we will have a systematic risk, and we have really problems out there.
Mm. Okay, so when you talk about asking for their shares or asking for proof of their shares, do you mean the direct registry system, the Computershare, where people can ask for their certificates and to be directly like stamped
Yes,
as?
that's very important. They can prove that they own it really.
Why is that so important? Just for people who maybe like have seen this floating around but haven't
Because
understood
when
why.
because when then brokers can say, oh, we fucked it up. Sorry for that expression, but then they have a proof that they own it to somebody else. Yes, it's very important.
Okay. So you mentioned that there are a bunch of reasons that the market is it's hanging on the edge of a cliff, to put it one way. So what aside from this, aside from Evergrande, what's the other potential things that are what are the other things that you're looking at that are stacking
Yeah,
up that are making you think, yeah, we're in for a crash, basically?
yeah. So besides, supply chains are broken, um, and um, and also the Fed and other um, central banks are printing money um, to stabilize the markets, and I think this is kind of abused, and the liquidity is then taken by hedge funds for free, and they do fraudulent business, and it's also then abused. So yeah, these are the market is overdue to crash, and it has not happened yet because also with hedge funds and other small investors, they know that will happen. So the 2022 results are good. They got a huge bonus, and now we will see the crash coming very soon in the next couple of weeks. It got postponed a little bit more because the conflict between the US, the West, the NATO, and Russia. So, but then this could also be if Russia invades Ukraine tomorrow, would start a huge crash, or the high inflation. We will go into a hyperinflation situation very soon because we have no goods. The goods are not there. Even not there. If you want to buy a car, you have to wait a year. If you want that car, it will never arrive. So, and also we will see it in food, that the food prices will go up, and then yeah, it's the only exit for 4 weeks for the governments is to accept that we will have a hyperinflation and get out of it. But then all the workers, the savers, they will lose all of what they have earned in their lifetime, and it will create a lot of social problems.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that there is a chance that Evergrande's default and the resulting financial problems that may come from that in China could lead to war with China in potentially over Taiwan. Um, why do you think that is? Do you think China would lash out in
So
for war because they need
as,
something
as,
to? Yeah.
as you know, China has about taken, or the private sector of China has taken 500 billion US dollar as investment. But uh, then you know that the US is even more indebted with money from China. So the US could then say, if you do not pay our international investors, so sorry, we will not repay you the international debt. So and the US is even more indebted in China and could be used as an excuse also not to pay the debt.
Okay, so the China would just refuse to pay up, and you think that America would potentially start a war because they were out $500 billion?
It could be used as an excuse.
Okay.
We will see.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. So you also mentioned there that you thought that the crash was just weeks away, potentially, and that it had been postponed due to some of the crisis with Russia and Ukraine. Why do you think it's coming so soon? And how, by what way was it postponed?
So, two reasons why it was postponed. First, international investors wanted to show a good result in 2022. And then it was postponed because not to show any weakness to Russia, because if the economic system in the West is crashing, so it's the moral of the troops would not be good to fight or to defend the interests against Russia. And now that's the reason why the governance wants to still show strength. But as soon as Russia will invade Ukraine, it could happen tomorrow or very soon, then the market are crashing. Or if this does not happen, then we will be ready to crash anyway, because all of the financial investors, smart financial investors, well, they are now short and benefit from the downturn of the market.
Okay. So basically, you're saying that they were just fine to not allow the market to crash simply until the tax year was over and they could take some big fat bonuses, and so that their economy doesn't look weak in the face of Russia. So it's just it's all posturing, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was myself a long time was an investment banker working in London, and the bonus was a big event every year. So it's and people are driven by that a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to deny that could very well be the case. Yeah. I've spoken to enough people who were formerly in the financial industry to know that anything's possible. But so just to wrap up here then, is there anywhere you would like to point people towards to find your work, to watch this story? Where's the best place to get information?
So we have a website, dmsa-agentur.de. It's a German website, but we have all translated into English. We will soon publish an update on the status of the insolvency petition, and we're looking for a insolvency coordinator. So if somebody wants to take that role, so you are invited. Please contact us. And so I will continue commenting on any event which will happen globally. We will continue. I will continue with my team with Michael and Duke working together with me at DMSA. We will continue commenting on events and also warning people about what will be happen, and so be prepared for what's coming up, because it will be changing a lot of things you think but could not be changed.
Well, maybe that's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, Dr. Metzler, I really want to thank you for your time. It's been really educational, and I now understand just why Evergrande is important and how screwed we might all be. So thank you for that. But this will be out Wednesday. So links for all your work that I can find will be in the description below. For everyone listening, thanks very much. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the podcast. If you want to leave us a comment, that would be awesome. Please like, share, subscribe, and if you're listening on Apple, please leave us a review. Until next time, thanks for listening.